Superman. Now, Superman's most emotional moment is without a doubt when he has to face Darkseid again. You see, previously, Darkseid abducted and mind-washed Superman into thinking he was Darkseid's son. Darkseid then used him to attack planets and conquer them for him, killing a lot of people. I mean, yes, they're aliens, but still, they're sentient, so it's close enough. And Darkseid's ultimate goal was to have Superman conquer the Earth. But Earth was able to stop Superman and actually knock the sense back into him and break him of the mind-washing. But not before all of the Earth lost trust in him. Well, literally, all of humanity hates him after this. And in fairness, you could say that just that is the most emotional Superman moment. And be fair, you're probably right, but I'm kind of counting the whole Darkseid interactions. And after Superman gets his memories knocked back into him, he does go to confront Darkseid. And he does beat him, only for Darkseid's people to rush to his aid. I mean, he is a cruel dictator. These people are slaves who he just beats, tortures and exploits. But you know how it is in cults. They love their cult leader, don't they? And so they rush over to help him, which is weird, but for some reason these people are surprisingly loyal.
I am many things, Kal-El, but here I am God.
And of course, it gets worse from there. You see, later on, Brainiac attacks the planet Apokolips, and so Darkseid, in some bizarreness, decides to come to the Justice League for help, which for once, Superman doesn't want to give, and the rest of the match you have to convince them for him to go and help a planet, which does kind of make sense how much he hates Darkseid. This is Superman, the kindest person in the universe, and yet he doesn't want to help a bunch of people who are quite innocent. I mean, they might be loyal slaves who will happily murder on behalf of Darkseid, but they are still innocent, and they are very much mind-washed, much like Superman once was. Of course, all that being said, it does turn out to be a trap, and Darkseid double-crosses them, which is not surprising. I mean, he double-crosses everyone. In fact, he even double-crosses Brainiac right after this. You see, basically what has happened here is, Brainiac's turned up, Darkseid's army is pretty beaten at the moment and he can't fight them. So he said, tell you what, I'll give you Superman's body instead. And Brainiac said, yeah, alright. And that was basically their deal. He would give him Superman's body, Brainiac would leave Apokolips alone. Of course, Darkseid's next move was to use a father box to take over Brainiac's mind and control all of his wonderful technology. Which is why you should never trust the devil. And all of this of course leads to an epic showdown between Superman and Darkseid. Now the two keep fighting, even though the base is exploding around them, and Batman has to basically pull Superman out by force, which is good because the base then explodes, killing Darkseid, and it would have killed Superman too if Batman hadn't saved him. Though Superman is still furious at Batman for interrupting the fight. But of course he didn't need to worry because it didn't end there. You see, later on Lex Luthor accidentally resurrects Darkseid, and then Darkseid invades Earth and fights Superman for the final time. And this one is actually a really great showdown, where Superman just mans up in the final moment and truly unleashes his power on Darkseid. In fact, he even goes on a big speech about how he's never unleashed like this before because no one else can take it, and he's grateful that Darkseid's given him the opportunity. It's just an amazing moment. So I count all of this as his most tragic moments, his most emotional moment, because it all kind of interlinks and it reawakens his past traumas with Darkseid. But I think it is fair to say him being mind-washed by him is undoubtedly the worst part of this. But still, I like to just encompass the whole thing because not only is it an interesting story, but it is really interesting to see the most humble, kindest, nicest man just turn a little bit to the dark side, just embracing his anger and his need for revenge, just a little bit. Not too much he goes full on injustice or anything, but just enough to keep things interesting. Wonder Woman. Now, in this universe, Wonder Woman's mother doesn't want Wonder Woman to leave the island at all. It's right at the beginning of the series. In fact, she actually ends up stealing the classic outfit and magical bracelet and then runs away to join the world of man, all against her mother's wishes. Of course, do bear in mind that she's a princess and her mother is queen of all the people. Which means that, it's not the same as me or you sneaking out the house when we were kids. This is a much bigger deal. Now, of course, Wonder Woman does eventually return home, only to discover that everyone, including her mother, has been turned to stone by the sorcerer Felix Faust. And he says that he will only return them all to flesh if Wonder Woman goes on a series of fetch quests for him. So she has no choice in this, of course, and although she's reluctant, she does actually enlist the help of the Justice League. And they assemble the artifact that Felix Faust wants. But she doesn't trust him because, well, she's not an idiot. Especially since Batman works out that the artifacts are a key to open a portal to the underworld Tartarus, where the evil god Hades is imprisoned. And clearly, Faust wants to release him. I mean, why else would you need the key to the door if you're not going to open it? But still, despite knowing this, she really doesn't have a choice. She has to give Faust the key in order to get her mother and sisters back in their flesh forms again. But she does bring the Justice League as backup because she doesn't trust him to follow her on his promise. Unfortunately, Faust is a powerful sorcerer and is able to get away from them and open the gates to hell. Now, Hades does walk out, and rather than give Faust his reward, he double-crosses him and kills him. Which is why you should never trust the devil. Which ironically is the exact point of the play Faust. Now, of course, the League have followed Faust and they do battle with the god of death. But even their powers are no match for an Olympian god. So they do the only thing they can, and they destroy the key, which for some reason creates some sort of magical vacuum that sucks Hades back in and returns him to hell. And on top of which, with Faust dead, his spell is undone, which means that all of the Amazons have been returned to flesh again. And you'd think that all of this, Wonder Woman returning home and saving her entire people from being turned to stone permanently, well, you'd think that all of that would get her a hero's welcome. And she would have, if not for the fact that the Themyscirians are insanely sexist. And the only thing that they seem to care about is the fact that their lives were saved by men. I mean, how weird is that the only thing they care about is that men saved them, not the fact that they were saved? Very odd. And even though the Justice League do get golden laurels as a reward, so they begrudgingly do give them some respect, Wonder Woman still gets banished for life. All for bringing the filth of men to their island. Even though without them, they'd all be turned to stone for all of time. It's one of those moments that's really just not fair, you know? And it's undoubtedly Wonder Woman's most emotional moment. I mean, this whole thing is just tragic. She's gone home after all this time away, hoping that, they might accept her, they might be angry, but, they'll be glad to see her, only to find out that they've all been in some sort of turned to stone limbo, and when she saves them, what do? They banish her forever. And honestly, I have no idea how she feels, because I really can't even imagine how you would feel. I mean, she may have run away from home, but she wanted nothing more than to return. She wanted nothing more than to come and see her sisters again. And now her mother, who ironically wouldn't let her leave before, is now never letting her return. And in fairness to her, Diana does take it with grace. She takes it like the princess she was born to be. But still, it is unfair and it is ridiculous. And quite frankly, just wrong. Martian Manhunter. Now, Martian Manhunter was originally created to be a Superman stand-in, if you want to look back through the history of comics. You see, the owners of the comic were worried that readers would get sick of Superman being in so many different titles, so they made the character Martian Manhunter as a carbon copy of Superman, except they gave him a few more extra powers to kind of make him a bit more interesting. But this is why he has all of Superman's powers, plus he is the last survivor of an alien planet and an immigrant on Earth. Although I should say that they do get rid of heat vision in this universe, so he doesn't have that power. I mean, they actually get rid of it in most universes, to be fair. They want to make fire his kryptonite, so giving him heat vision, well, it doesn't really make sense, does it? But of course, unlike Superman, Martian Manhunter actually has memories of his home planet. I mean, he didn't leave as a baby, but as an adult who was married and even had children, which makes him even more depressed and homesick because his wife and children have died along with his entire species. And this is actually a running theme throughout the show that he is, quite sad. I mean, he's closed off from humanity due to his trauma, and that's fair. I mean, again, I can't even begin to imagine what he's gone through or what this would be like, so it is very fair that it's overloading him and he needs some time. But unfortunately, one of their villains takes advantage of this. You see, John tries to read her mind, but Morgana Le Fay uses her magic to turn the tide and read his mind instead. And then she finds out what is his heart's desire, and she offers to return his family to the land of the living if he gets her a magical relic of unlimited power. So much power that she'll be able to resurrect them. Now, obviously this is a lie. Yes, she does get the Philosopher's Stone, and with it, she would have the power to resurrect them. But she's not going to. Whenever you do a deal with the devil never upholds their end. Which is what Etrigan keeps trying to tell him. And Etrigan knows for a fact that it's a lie, because he himself once fell for it as well. You see, Morgana Le Fay once offered him everything he wanted to betray his people. And then, after he betrayed them, she immediately betrayed him. But unfortunately, the allure of having his family returned is just too overpowering for Martian Manhunter. And quite frankly, who can blame him? I mean, it's not only his heart's desire, but it's also kind of his duty as a father to protect his children, and as a husband. I mean, yes, they're dead, but shouldn't he actually do everything he can to bring them back if he has the opportunity? And even though he does his best to resist, he ultimately is unable to do so, and he ends up stealing the stone, and he sets out to give it to LeFay. But in fairness, when it comes to the final moment of handing the stone over, the demon intercepts, he reads the demon's mind, he understands what's going on, and he finds the strength to be a hero. And he doesn't give the stone to LeFay, but rather he ends up destroying it. And he does this because even though he knows it could give him everything he wanted, well, she's not going to do it, is she? So what's the point in giving her the power to conquer the world if he can't even get what he wants out of it? And even though he saw the light in the end, he still feels bad about the whole thing, and he even ends up resigning from the Justice League over it. Though of course the rest of the League refuse his resignation. After all, when it comes to the Justice League, they all have a lot of dead relatives, and they'd all love to bring them back to life, so they completely understand the desire. In fact, there are several stories where the rest of them did try to bring their family members back to life, so they can completely relate and are definitely not in a position to judge. I mean, hell, the Flash once nearly destroyed the world, changing history just to bring his mother back to life in the old Flashpoint paradox. And everyone understood that as well. As I've said before, the Justice League is kind of the Dead Parents Club, so everyone is going to understand this. And they do, which is why they forgave Martian Manhunter and why they forgave the Flash. And those are the most dramatic moments in the show's run. Of the 7 main heroes, like I said, I'm not going to go over all the characters. I'm also not going to pick a favourite, because that's your job. Though I do like the Superman one, and I think the Wonder Woman one is probably the most tragic of these. But I'm really not picking a favourite, that is up to all of you to decide in the comments, along with what you think of this list, and if there are any other moments that you think should have been included in this video. And I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.